All right, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is having a fabulous Monday morning. You can certainly tell that the last day of summer and now we're into fall is apparent when you look at at how just really how dark it was this morning. It's kind of funny, and how it's getting darker earlier. That's quite the indication that fall is upon us. Sweater weather, I have to say. I am a big fan of sweater weather, and so I'm looking forward to the seasons changing a bit, but I know it's a little disappointing that when we transition from summer to fall. So happy fall and happy Monday. So today's mug is really, it's my mom mug. I got my mom mug out because today Sabrina is 26. So Sabrina is my firstborn, made me a mom. She's 26 today, and I know people on Facebook and might be watching this Zoom have known her since she was very little. I started as a state representative 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, but I was also an alderman with the city of Aurora, and so my kids have kind of grown up in this sphere. The paths that we take are really random. You think you're going to go one direction in life, and turns out when you look back, it's gone a totally different direction than you would have thought of. So Sabrina was 4.5 when I was first elected alderman for the city of Aurora. Sam had just turned 1. So now Sam is 21. He had his birthday back in April. But today on the nose is Sabrina's birthday today, and she's 26 years old. So it goes by fast, and you have to cherish every single moment you have with your kids, because you blink and then they're adults. But I have to say that I've had a wonderful time being a parent, being a mom. Sabrina and I get along wonderfully, and I just wouldn't have had it any other way. So happy birthday to Sabrina today. Also, today is quite a special day for all those who celebrate Yom Kippur. Hope it's a restful day. But I know for me, today's not a restful day. The rest of the week's going to be really crazy busy. But all who celebrate a wonderful Yom Kippur today as well. We're going to transition a little bit into really giving our condolences over this last week. Vernon LaVia passed away, if you didn't see it on Facebook, and he was an individual I've known this whole 20 some years that I've been as an alderman and a state rep. Always had a smile on his face, always had a great thing to say, always liked birds, was a bird whisperer, could whistle like any bird you could think of, a bird watcher, bird aficionado, and overall was a very wonderful person. And he passed away and was laid to rest last week. And I just want to offer my condolences and prayers to the LaVia family. Obviously, it's so tough to lose somebody so young. Their kids are roughly about the same age as my kids, a little difference, but certainly please reach out, keep their family in your thoughts and prayers with regards to this difficult time that they're going through. So it's just shocking and sad, and really, really tough on that family network. But we are going to roll into what's going on with the state of Illinois. Well, one of the things that we are looking at is this upcoming week. There's several committees that are scheduled. Last week on the 19th, they had a meeting at the Senate Judiciary had a meeting to discuss, Age Appropriate Design Code Act. So the language establishes regulations for businesses that provide online products or services targeted to children. Now, this is a big subject. I went to a conference. We're really talking about this online digital marketing, and actually where sometimes predators can access children that we don't know about, and really looking at design code on the internet. So it's in other states, and we are looking for best practices and really protecting our children online. Now, I've talked about this in the past. It is physically impossible for parents to do everything to protect their children online, because to be quite honest, the technology runs faster than parents do. I just talked about being a parent, and you have a lot of things that are going on in life, and trying to keep up with all the different ways in which online marketers get access to your children, but also online predators can have access to the children. It's ever changing. Within a blink of an eye, this technology changes robustly. And so we are looking at legislation. This is the role of government, to look at legislation to hold businesses accountable when they are marketing and accessing children online. So the Senate Judiciary had that committee last week. It was very informative. The bill number they discussed was Senate Bill 1126, Senate Amendment 1. Now, this week, I guess in Springfield, but not in Springfield, at the Balandic Building in Chicago. So we have meetings in Springfield. We also have meetings in Chicago at the Balandic Building. So on the 27th, which is Wednesday, you have healthcare licensing. They're meeting at 10 a.m. and they're going to discuss delays with processing licensing requests. So we're still looking at that process as well. And that committee, Ethics and Elections, is going to meet that same day, the 27th, at 2 p.m. to discuss election security. And then if you are following my committee, pensions, personnel and pensions, we are meeting September 28th at 1 p.m. We are looking at all the different aspects of pension funding and the aspects with regards to our public safety employees and how the pension funding affects them. Following up, you have healthcare licensing, and House Labor and Commerce joint meeting is on October 3rd at 1 a.m. to discuss healthcare worker staffing ratios. These are all live stream at ilga.gov. So you can tune into any of these to see how the committees are discussing, what subject matters they're talking about. And really, if you're interested, this is the work we do in crafting legislation that eventually, hopefully, get into laws. So that's pretty much what we're looking at. Now, the Legislative Audit Commission is meeting September 28th at 10 a.m. to review the Department of Aging and the Department of Internet Technology. So DO-IT is what they call it. And then following on, we have a committee. I know it seems like we have a lot of committees, but we do. We're a very large state. The Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, JCAR, that meets all the way into October 17th at 11 a.m. The agenda includes, not limited to, discussion of proposed rules. So what happens is when the General Assembly passes a law, sometimes in order to follow the law, the department has to create rules, and these rules come before JCAR, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, to make sure that the rules follow the intent of the law. So proposed rules are related to the Community Care Program, that's the Department of Aging, the Illinois Energy Conservation Code, that's then the Video Gaming Board, Elevator Safety Rules, Procurement by the Treasurer's Office, Public Use of the Capitol Complex and Facilities, that's the Secretary of State. JCAR will also review emergency rules related to health benefits for immigrants and licensing standards for daycares. So definitely that is out there that you can look at if you're interested in that sort of thing. Those things come across my desk. And then there's a new caucus. So in the General Assembly, we have several caucuses that meet with like-minded representatives. So several, mostly Democrats, joined together to create a new caucus. And this is to address domestic energy supply needs, offer policy solutions to air and environmental quality issues, and explore alternative energies. So these members include Senator Patrick Joyce, Representatives Dagmara Avalar, Representative Tara Casa Howard, Evadina Delgado, Dave Vella, and Ann Williams. We also do have a Green Caucus that parlays a little bit into that. So I'm sure they will work together with regards to that. As to the number of caucuses in the Illinois House, I can tell you, I don't have that number. I know there's a fire caucus. I know there's a diabetes awareness caucus. And so there's a lot of caucuses of like-minded individuals that want to focus on specific subjects that are overall very important to a lot of people. So there is some work in committees, and then there is some work in caucuses as well. I mentioned this, I believe, last week, but another congratulations to Yolanda Morris. She was appointed to the 9th House District to fill the vacancy created when Lakeisha Collins went over to the Senate. We talked about that last week. And then, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, Representative Jennifer Lash Douglas has decided to not seek another term. So, as you know, going down the Springfield causes a bit of stress and is very time consuming. So we wish her well. Lance Yednock has decided not to run again. Jonathan Carroll, Dan Caucus, John Nagosky, Mike Maroon, as well as Senators Tom Benton and Win Stoller. So this is a natural turnover of the Illinois House and the Illinois Senate. And I've mentioned this before, over 50% of the General Assembly is less than 5 years in office. So just looking at those. And if you're keeping track of the dates, we will be in Springfield for veto session, October 24th through the 26th and November 7th through the 9th. So definitely those are more important dates to keep on your calendar. I know they're on my calendar because they're very important to me. And then just aside from committee work, what are we looking at on our desk? Well, one of the things that work really really important that comes across our desk is a shortage. We do have a shortage of first responders. I know that in this area, in our area, hiring has been difficult for police and fire. But if you don't really know, just over half of all firefighters in the United States are estimated to be volunteers. And if you're not familiar with our area, we have the Aurora Township Fire Department, which is right on Montgomery Road, and they have volunteer firefighters, volunteer individuals that go in and they help. They have to respond to house fires and car crashes and medical emergencies, natural disasters. Now, they do look at, other departments for help. They have full-time staff on the Aurora Township Fire Department, but they also have part-time and they also have volunteers. 2/3 of the states, we have over 1,000 fire departments, but 2/3 of the states, over 1,000 fire departments, rely almost entirely on volunteers. Now, obviously in Aurora, they have their fire department. Naperville has their fire department. And, but a lot of fire departments rely on volunteers. You might not have known that and might not have understand that. So what is difficult is not only are there staffing lows in terms of like Naperville hiring firemen and Aurora department hiring firemen, but volunteers have been going down as well. And when we look throughout Illinois and we look at what we're facing historic lows, especially in smaller towns and townships like Aurora Township. And so, for example, it was recently reported Galena Fire Department, billed as the state's oldest fire department, has a volunteer membership at 62, and right now they only have 24 volunteers. So they need 62 and they only have 24. And this is by far really, really concerning. And some of the volunteers aren't always paramedics, and they got to go to EMT school, and so it's really, really stressful, for lack of a better word, and concerning from the state. So the shortages come, and we have service demands, and we're trying to save individuals' life. So you can rely on surrounding agencies for aid and emergency responses, and looking for like federal grants and other funds to pay for part-time help. But we're looking at a critical shortage right now. And we're looking at how our public safety is going to be impacted. So, I mean, what can we do on the state level? We've worked really hard. We offered tax breaks, other incentives for volunteer firefighters. Haven't quite worked out if we wanted to. And we're looking at these smaller towns, whereas the volunteers keep leaving. They're not going to be able to respond the way that we need. And they're looking at some merges, but really, it's really, really tough when you think that if you call 911, you hope that help is going to be there. But without these volunteer fire departments, without these individuals stepping up and volunteering to be firemen, it really is concerning. So when we look at our statistics overall, overall statistics, which is what I tend to do in my job. I know a lot of people might not like statistics, but that's one of the things I actually do enjoy, is looking at numbers and things. But 1995, if we're going to look throughout the nation, there was about 838,000 volunteer firefighters in America. But today it's fallen to 676,000. So a nearly 25% drop, and that's huge. In Illinois, let's talk about Illinois. In Illinois, it's hitting us the most in like central Illinois, and again, some of these smaller towns. So it's really, really concerned. We're losing volunteers about 28%. It's gone down. It's a struggle. It's getting worse. And part of the issue is, of course, now the economy. Individuals are going back to work. There's fewer job opportunities in these smaller communities. So individuals are moving out of these smaller communities into more populated areas, or individuals are forced to travel farther for work and then there's always employers that aren't always willing to let their staff go and answer emergency calls at a last minute. And that's a reality as well. Emergency pagers, emergency calls can go off during family dinners at 2 a.m., Christmas morning, at family events. So being a volunteer firefighter is demanding on the person and their families. And it's tough. So, and then, so what can we do? We're still working on it. We're going to keep working on it. But, anybody who wants to be a volunteer firefighter, certainly give it a thought. It can be a very rewarding job. It is pretty demanding, but it can be a really rewarding job as well. So moving right along with regards to that, good morning, Brian and Bob Dunn, Talking Fire, and Bonnie. Good morning to Bonnie and Gay for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. What else does the state look at? Well, we have the Illinois Racing Board. Now, I know that in our area, Churchill closed down and they demolished the stands, and the Bears are looking to go there, and there's a bunch of talk about that property. But the Illinois Racing Board still meets, and they approve 78 thoroughbred race programs at Hawthorne Race Course. So Hawthorne, if you don't know where it's at, it's located about 10 miles southwest of downtown Chicago. We'll race 2 days a week, Saturdays and Sundays, from March 23rd to June 1st. So there is still horse racing in Illinois. If you didn't think about it, but it will. The track will race 3 days a week, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays from June 2nd to October 13th. So the racing board sets all these. And if you didn't know, that's one of their jobs. Hawthorne plans to have what we call a Racino, which is online slots at the racetrack, operational by the end of the calendar year of 2024. So that's another thing that's being overlooked as well, not necessarily by the racing board, but by the gaming commission and Illinois Gaming Department. So, but that's another fun fact that you might not know, that the state of Illinois, of course, has jurisdiction over, and really looks at, just all these things. Another fun fact is trying to track Chicago river fish to find out where they're going and why. So here's another, I guess, fun fact or things that you might not think about, but the Chicago River, has bluegills and other fish in it. And so what they're looking at is the different behaviors that have fish, and researchers from the Shedd Aquarium, very interesting. So the Shedd Aquarium partnered with Purdue University and the Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and they are tracking the movements of 80 individual fish in the Chicago River system. So you can go online and track and see how they are tracking, for example, in one instance, a bluegill in the Chicago area waterway system. So the fish are being tagged, and they're emitting signals every minute or so for the last few months. And the signals are unique to each fish and sound like pings, of course. And they're being picked up by more than 30 acoustic receivers that are throughout the river's wild mile. So if you want to know what that is, it's in the North Branch, Bubbly Creek in the South Branch, and by the Riverwalk in downtown Chicago. So when they turn out the listening devices, they are allowing researchers to follow the fish as they move around these areas, these systems, and how they're responding to new habitat restoration initiatives, flooding, sewage overflows, and seasonal changes. So it's pretty interesting, in my opinion, what happens in the winter, what happens, when it gets super cold, what happens during poor water quality. So I just think it's really kind of interesting, all the different researches that they have, and to figure out what we can do better, how we can improve the water quality and the fish and that sort of thing. So when you how big is this tag? It's about the size of a Tylenol or an Advil. It's very small. They tag largemouth bass, normally shorter than 12 inches, heavy as 14 ounces. It's kind of on the small side. And they tagged common carp, as I said, bluegill, a couple pumpkin seed, 2 black carpies, a walleye, and a green sunfish. They were tagging those, and it's just, again, like I said, it's just pretty interesting. And then we're going to see how we can help out. Do we need floating wetlands? Do we need, and this is all being worked at with the Department of Natural Resources. So a neat little project there. For what it's worth, that's stuff that comes across my desk, this crazy stuff that goes across my desk every week. Another fun fact, you probably heard about it in the news already, but an Illinois man won $2 million at the scratch-off lottery and immediately retired. So it was sold at a gas station in Morris, Illinois. So purchased a $20 Illinois lottery scratch-off ticket and got $2 million after playing the 100 times payout instant ticket game. The man is 66 and his wife purchased a ticket while stopping for gas at the Pilot Travel Center, like I said, in Morris. And he immediately retired. So God bless him. And I hope he has a wonderful time with his winnings. So one of the things we are looking at, and I've discussed a bit, are asylum seekers that are coming into Chicago. Changing subject matters here a little bit from a guy winning $2 million to asylum seekers. I realize it's different spectrums of the discussion, but still information. So asylum seekers are individuals that are coming here because of certain conditions in their home country, excessive violence, and just all different parameters that allow them to petition the federal government to seek asylum. So asylum seekers have the ability to petition the Illinois to stay here if their lives are in jeopardy, their families' lives are in jeopardy, certain conditions arise. So I know that there have been discussions with regards to the asylum seekers. They are not here illegally. There's a process. It's an asylum process. The federal government looks at all these cases. So we are looking at and trying to work with the federal government, and the federal government just allowed an easier way for Venezuelan asylum seekers to apply for accelerated work permits and gained expanded protected status. So if we're looking at what does that mean for us? So we've had about 14,000 asylum seekers come into Chicago, and about 5,000 of them are from Venezuela, and they are facing economic and political turmoil there. So the Biden administration is now allowing these asylum seekers the opportunity to find work by getting a work permit and be able to get their feet on the ground and get a job, really. And so it's really important. It's really important that we look at and see where we can help and where we can provide opportunities for these asylum seekers that are coming now from Venezuela. There are worker shortages in many different companies in Chicago. So there are opportunities there, and it could certainly help out our businesses. So this is, again, another example of Illinois working with the federal government and working quite well with it. Another good thing about helping to accelerate these work permits for these individuals is because these individuals are going to need to find work anyway while they're going through the asylum process. And so now that they can work legally, they won't get exploited. They won't be victims of wage theft or trafficking. So we can get them jobs and fill, like I said, openings in many companies that we can help out. So I do believe that that's really, really a win-win, and something that doesn't really affect our area. It really affects the Chicago and Chicago dealing with the asylum seekers, but definitely it's something that comes across all our desks because the state is Chicago is 3 million individuals live in Chicago, about 6 million live in Cook County. So about half the state's population is in Cook County and Chicago. So it is a very, very important thing to always kind of be in the know about and understand how things are going. Now, also in Chicago is looking at tipped workers. So when you go to some places, not all, but if you go to a restaurant, they are what's called sub-minimum wage, which means tipped workers make less than the minimum wage, and it's expected that the tips would make up for the remainder of the amount needed for the minimum wage. So to make that up, what Chicago is looking at is raising in Chicago what is called the sub-minimum wage, meaning that tipped workers would make the same minimum amount as other workers across Chicago. So if you go to some other places, they ask, would you like to leave a tip? Some of those individuals are already getting paid minimum wage, and then the tips go on top of that, which is perfectly fine. But right now, the sub minimum wage is looking to increase by about 8% until it matches about $15.48. So it's not quite complete. It's going to the full city council for a vote, which is expected shortly. So raising again the minimum wage for all tipped workers in the city of Chicago. And so it's backed. There's a lot of discussions with the Illinois Restaurant Association. They're looking to try and find a compromise. And so it's coming across and looking at trying to get in the review in some individuals, looking at allowing a fair wage for many restaurant workers who long go underpaid. So that's trying to make it even with some of the other industries in the city of Chicago. So definitely that's something that we look at, and that's come across our desk, and that's something that the city of Chicago is looking at on the city council, because in Illinois, we have quite a lot of local control. The city of Chicago is, obviously the city, and the representatives there can pass legislation that they feel is for the right fit for their city. So that's definitely what they're doing. And then Sally just put in the chat, Village Baptist Church in Aurora has a new family of 4 that has traveled the Darien Gap for 4 days. Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Sally. It's really remarkable, some of the stories that individuals have. And if you just listen to the struggles that they had in their home country, and they want to come here again, we talked about individuals from Venezuela. So definitely that's it's just, when you talk to individuals, it's just it really individuals just want to live in a safe place and be able to raise their family and not be in fear of a lot of things. So it's very interesting. What else is going on? October 1st is right around the corner. And if you have been watching the court cases with regards to the assault weapon law, the new law, so individuals who own what is considered an assault weapon, they're defined as assault weapons, along with assault weapon attachments, 50 caliber rifles, 50 caliber cartridges, high capacity magazines. There is an exemption, so individuals are exempt if you already own these firearms. However, you need to submit an endorsement affidavit through the FOID system, through your firearm owner's identification card account, before January 1, 2024. So starting October 1st, right around the corner, the Illinois State Police are beginning to accept affidavits online starting on October 1st. So affidavits must be submitted online through the FOID card account. It can be accessed through the Illinois State Police's Firearm Services Bureau website, or by going directly to ispfsb.com/public/login.aspx. They also have a frequently asked question page put on their website if you need any other information with regards to that. What's in the affidavit? The affidavit must include the applicant's name, date of birth, and FOID card number. Applicants also need to provide the make, model, caliber, and serial number of each weapon, and a statement testifying that they own a locking mechanism for the weapon. So the affidavit form also include a statement that reads, entering false information on the form is punishable by perjury. I know that I think my office received some gun locks. So if you need gun locks, call my office. And we're giving them away for free to anybody who needs one. So definitely in a 4-3 decisions, as you recall, I've talked about this before. Back in August, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the law. However, there are still cases in the United States federal court, and there is a case pending an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. So there's still federal court challenges going on about the Second Amendment and of the U.S. Constitution. So it's still pending. However, there was no judicial stay or halt of this provision. So the permits again will take effect October 1st, and you have until January 1st, 2024 to complete the affidavit. We're also looking Illinois' clean energy and transportation. The jobs are growing. So we just got a report. We get a lot of reports. And I cannot read all of them. I try to read as many of them as I possibly can. But clean transportation jobs were the state's fastest growing job sector in 2022. So the 2023 Clean Jobs Midwest report showed that the state has about 125,000 clean energy jobs. 14,000 of them are in the clean transport industry, such as electric vehicle makers as Rivian and Normal, and Line Electric, which has a plant near Joliet. So it's a great job growth in the electric vehicle and the battery industry. So again, this is all new occupations, and definitely really an important economic drivers. I didn't have enough coffee this morning, so I apologize for that, but definitely important economic drivers that for our community and for our state. And that's the number one thing that we need to work on is just staying ahead of where industry is at and where the jobs are at, and how we are going to maximize the benefit for Illinois. So Illinois being really the hub of the area, and really with our infrastructure being right in the middle of the nation, we have a wonderful opportunity here. Speaking of electric vehicles and vehicles in general, segues into the United Auto Worker employees. So the United Auto Workers is on strike, and so we are looking at how does that affect Illinois as well. So employees in Bolingbrook and Naperville joined the national walkout against the big three automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. And the workers on the Ford assembly plant on the Chicago South Side, they stopped short of walking out, and they did hold a rally instead. So definitely that's that they're showing solidarity with regards to the union negotiations. There is some progress in negotiations. This is nationwide, and certainly we would like to see fair wages and protections for the workers, along with being able to negotiate. So it's been the first strike in years. UAW workers are a little fed up with the status quo, and they are looking at trying to, of course, get better benefits and help with regards to inflation. Plants that are also cater to battery cars, we were just talking electric vehicles, are paying less than workers in older facilities. So definitely, and then you're looking at when they plan to idle a plant like in Belvedere, it's assembly plant, it's really important. Now, if we're looking at it and we've looked at the historical data, the increasing wage gap between high paid CEOs and workers is getting worse and worse and worse. The workers are getting paid less. The CEO and upper management is getting paid more. That's what is driving, really driving individuals to realize that they need to organize. So we are looking at workers in the range of industries from Hollywood to UPS to Starbucks. They're organizing, and they just want to be treated fair. In Chicago, the Wrigley Field concession workers also authorized a strike, but it seems like the Writers Guild are reaching a tentative agreement with the studios and the streamers, the union has said. Unions are ensuring that the workers are treated fairly and properly. And when you have gross overpayment of CEOs and underpayment of workers, that's not fair. And so I appreciate and support, the workers of our unions and those that are standing up to make sure that there is a balance in the industries. So definitely that's what we are looking at as well. And something that, affects Illinois, but, you need to make sure that workers get paid properly and fairly. So I support their efforts and hope that they can get a clear and fair contract. And then talking about workers, Congress on the federal level, talked about them before. You might have read on the news or not read on the news. If Congress doesn't pass the federal spending bill by October 1st, again, right around the corner, there's going to be agency closures, and it will affect Illinois residents. And you're looking at how can, the federal government, Illinois, I've talked about before, we work along side by side with a lot of things. And it seems that in the congressional House in Washington, it's a Republican majority. In the congressional Senate, it's a Democrat majority. So you have a split government there. And so it's up to the Republicans to, they're in the majority, and we're looking at the House. Hopefully they can get done in a bipartisan way. Bills in our Springfield arena in the General Assembly normally get passed in a bipartisan way. So hopefully it can be bipartisan. But if they can't get it done by October 1st, hundreds and thousands of federal employees would be forced to work without pay or stop working at all, which brings federal government services to a halt. So what does that mean with regards to like Illinois? Well, if you look at what lawmakers receive a list of government employees who would be furloughed in the event of a shutdown, and 244,000 people from the Department of Homeland Security. So will that mean people working at TSA at the airports will be just sent home? Will they be forced to work without pay? It's very, very hard, and it's very difficult to understand. If in Illinois, what we do is we get a lot of information like from the IRS and other departments on a regular basis. Let's just say if the IRS were to shut down, put government employees out of work for a long period of time, then we can't, it will impact, tax revenues, because they file taxes, companies file taxes quarterly sometimes. And other individual tax revenue comes from withholdings that people get in their paycheck to the state of Illinois. So if the government shut down, that can affect our tax revenue. The Illinois Department of Human Services is also concerned. If there's a shutdown that stretches into November, the agencies would have to shift to state funding from a period of time, because we also get funds from the federal government to do the work that we have to do. We get reimbursements from the federal government with regards to our veterans' homes. So we get paid to pretty much staff and support our veterans homes. The state of Illinois receives funding from that from the federal government. If the federal government closes down, shuts down, then that funding potentially would disappear, and then we would have to fund it ourselves in our budget, which is not budgeted. A small group of House Republicans are blocking the spending bills that are to move through the committees, the Department of Defense bill, the National Park Service bills, and other bills. We thought that there was an agreement back in June, but there apparently was not. And so the state and the federal government programs Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security are financed from other federal spending services and won't be affected by the shutdown, which is really good, because that could really complicate other people's lives. So the Food and Drug Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency would have to stop inspections. The Department of Health and Human Services will no longer be able to award grants for Head Start, a program that provides early childhood education to lower-income families. That's a program that the state and the federal government gives to the state administers it. And it's just it's sad. There have been 4 federal shutdowns over the past 25 years. They have ranged from 2 days to nearly a month. So it's not unusual for there to be a shutdown for a couple days. However, it's very concerning if they can't even pass a temporary funding bill. It's concerning with the programs that so many people here in Illinois rely on. So that's another concerning thing that we need to look at. And then finally, a couple other things. One thing to leave off on is the Illinois Supreme Court. So not a lot of folks know about the Illinois Supreme Court, but the Illinois Supreme Court has a new interactive learning center so that individuals can understand the role of the Illinois Supreme Court. If you go back to 1946, as reported by the Capital News, Capital News, Illinois, the Illinois Supreme Court heard a case that eventually became a landmark in American legal history. A public school district in Champaign allowed a group of local religious leaders to use their schools to teach elective classes in religion and openly encouraged, sometimes coerced, students to participate in them. An atheist and a mother of a Champaign student complained, saying her son was ostracized by other students by not attending them. She sued in state court, claiming the use of public schools to teach religion violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of religion. The Illinois Supreme Court rejected her claim, but the U.S. Supreme Court later reversed that decision, saying the practice violated the separation of church and state. It's one of the cases that visitors in the Illinois Supreme Court building in Springfield can learn about and discuss at the court's new learning center, which officially opened this week. So I think it's so very important for people to understand our three-tiered system, 3 checks and balances: the judicial system, the legislative system, and the executive branch. And it's important for civic education to increase because to know what the Supreme Court does. So Alexander Hamilton said in the Federalist 78, courts are the weakest branch of government because they have neither the power of the purse nor the power of the sword. So where does the court's power come from? It comes from trust in our judicial system. So courts are perhaps the least misunderstood or least understood institution in a government because most people have little or no contact with them. But it's so important for people to understand the role of not only the Supreme Court, but the court system, which leads us into our final segment that I'm going to talk about today, cash bail. So last week, we were looking at cash bail and seeing how how things are going. And what we've been seeing, what I've been hearing, is that it's been going fairly well. Prosecutors have to make the case on why individuals need to be retained, why they cannot be let out on pretty much on reconnaissance with regards to charges against them. And so what we are looking at now is with regards to cash bail is that relatively smooth process. There has been, of course, with any new system, there's been some bumps in the road and a couple of processes that need to be worked out. But overall, it's been reported that court call takes a little bit longer, and they have to really look at the case before they would just see if the system would line up check boxes and set a amount for individuals would have to pay to either not be kept in pretrial confinement and be able to go home, or if you don't have the money, be kept in pretrial confinement. So it went relatively quick because you just had to see what criteria were established with regards to whatever was charged of the person in front of him. So what I've been really seeing and hearing is that the hearings are not just checking the box and rolling right through. They're deliberate, they're longer, and actually they resemble pretty much federal detention proceedings, to be quite honest. So first hearings under the new system where the defendant will be jailed while waiting trial based on dangerous risks of fleeing a prosecution or have the ability to await trial on their own reconnaissance at home. So this has been an interesting process. If we look at like St. Clair County Circuit Court, which was reported there are nearly 2,000 felony cases, more than 3,400 misdemeanors. Those are filed annually. So at least one person was released from jail to await trial on the second day of the Safety Act. So that was a couple days ago. And so it's interesting. The court is looking at whether an individual is a flight risk or a threat to public safety. And it's up to the prosecutors. Now, the prosecutors have to make the case that this defendant needs to be kept in pretrial confinement or petition for them not. So there were individuals, for example, 2 defendants were accused of first-degree murder and another was being held on firearms charges. So the testimony focused on their danger to the public, and these people were not allowed to bail out. Now, if you didn't realize this, federal court hearings, detention hearings in federal court, they haven't used cash bail as a detention method since 1984. So the federal government doesn't use cash bail. So it makes sense that we're having this process in place, which seems to this week seems to work pretty well. Certainly detentions for murder suspects, detentions for individuals with criminal history, with firearms offenses, that would have been, they under the Safety Act, they are detained. If you look at cases where there was firearm offenses and murder suspects, they were given, a bond. Let's just say, so one individual was given a bond of $1.5 million held in bail before the old system. They would need to pay just 10% of that, $150,000 to be released. So if somebody had access to $150,000, they would have been able to bail out and not be held accountable for their actions. And they they would have not been in jail because of the bond of the system today that just went into effect last week. They would be not released at all because of the circumstances of the case. Another individual had a firearms offense. His bail was set at $250,000. So he would have only had to make the 10%, $25,000. Two counts of unlawful possession of a weapon by a felon, aggravated unlawful use of a weapon resisting a police officer, and he was given a bail. So now these individuals would not be released under bail. And again, domestic violence is a detainable offense. So under the new law, if you're accused of domestic violence and certainly have the case for domestic violence is brought forward, it's a detainable offense, so they would not be able to bond out. So these are systems, and it seems that these murder suspects that were previously eligible to post bond, they're going to be held in jail now because bond is no longer an issue. It's the circumstances of the case. Now it's making, like I said, it makes for a little bit longer, but definitely it seems to be a positive. It seems to be going very positive with regards to that. So other than that, we're just moving right along. Like I said, committee meeting on pensions this week, so we're getting ready to work on that. And then really there are still legislators that are filing bills. We have veto session, which we could look at legislation with regards to that. We have individuals that are filing legislation with regards to commercial solar energy facilities. We are looking at one representative wants to amend the Abandoned Newborn Infant Protection Act to expand the definition of relinquished to include bringing a newborn infant to a maternity home. And then another one that talks about the school districts. A bullying prevention bill was filed, and then recognizing National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October was filed as well. So definitely there's still a lot going on while we're not in session, but definitely a lot of work still to do before we get to veto session in October. So with that, if by any chance you see my daughter around, wish her a happy birthday. And I will talk to you next month because it is already going to be October 2nd, next Monday. We'll zoom in again and keep you abreast of any upcoming information. Sign up for my email and you will get email updates almost weekly. And sometimes it's every 2 weeks. So with that, have a great first week of fall. And definitely, if you need anything, you can call my office, you can email me, or you can certainly reach out and let us know if we can assist in any way. COVID, RSV, the flu, all those are up with the changing of the weather. So again, be careful, hand sanitize, keep your distance, and be safe, be well. And I'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.